my geeks, freaks, and my peeps, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Chaos, and today, guys, oh my gosh, I just finished reading the Book of Bell yesterday, and oh my gosh, this thing gives us some big revelations. One of them I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about the Book of Bell in a couple of episodes. I'm not going to go into detail about every single little thing, because there's so much to unpack in here, and you could make a channel all onto your own. And plus, there's so many other people that will do more justice to it than I can do. But, I'm going to make 3 videos. This one is going to be talking about a theory I have that changed how I look about Bill Cipher. We'll get into that. I'm going to make another one discussing all the hidden references to, pop culture and, nerd culture. Because, oh my gosh, this thing is full to the brim of it. And I'm going to be discussing about the website thisisnotawebsite.com. And let's get into it, because oh my gosh. And if you're somehow not aware of who Bill Cipher is, please go and watch Gravity Falls before you continue this video. It is such a good show, and this will make a lot more sense. But if you're still here and you still don't know, and you ignore that, spoiler warning, first off, rude, how dare you ignore me. So we're going into a theory that I have about Bill Cipher, and this changes how, like I said, this changes how I look at Bill Cipher, in a big way, because if you pay attention to the show, he's got really 2 characteristics. One is purposely on display, and one's a bit more hidden, and the more, obvious trait that he has is his arrogance, is his cockiness. He thinks he can't be touched, and that's because for the most part he can't be touched, because he is a creature, the nightmare, so that's really hard to, for a nightmare demon. We also see this other side of him, which is fear, and we don't see that really at all until the very end of Weirdmageddon part 3 or 4. I think there's only 3 parts. When he finally realizes that he's gonna die because Stan tricked him, and he's not in Ford's head, he's in Stan's head.
You're making a mistake! I'll give you anything! Money, fame, riches, infinite power, your own galaxy, please!
And when that doesn't work, he panics and calls out to the axolotl. That's kind of setting up who Bill is. But this adds another big side that I don't think I've ever considered, and that's that he probably has deep regrets, and that's on full display in Book of Bell. I'm going to go over several pages that kind of play into this. The first section that kind of brings this up is this section, early years, and it was time to put on a show. So I'm gonna read these 2 pages in their entirety, because they're kind of important. Let's get something out of the way. There was no way your 3D eye to process my 2D homeworld unless you chuck expired milk while looking at a kaleidoscope. But since we're pals, I'll beam an image directly into your brain of me as a baby. Aww. I had Velcro shoes that squeaked to Nightman. Everybody loved me immediately. The mayor dubbed me the best baby of all time. On my birthday, a holiday, and gave out free knives. Oh no. You shouldn't do that with a baby, but okay. Look, I know you want some tragic backstory that humanizes me and makes my sharp edges easier to swallow. But if you came to a triangle looking for depth, you're barking up the wrong treatsy. Truth is, I've always loved and been admired by all. This is another big thing that kind of plays into the fact that, Trisha stated before, and even Bill now, states, there's not going to be much depth. No, he doesn't really have a reason for his actions, which very much is true. He very much, just kind of wants to party because he wants to party. And by party, I mean destroy, an entire galaxy. But, everyone has their own way of having fun, I guess. But yeah, but being special comes with a price. You see, I wasn't just smarter than the dull trapezoids and rhombuses sucking my rightful oxygen. I had a gift, a rare mutation. I could see the 3rd dimension. No one else in my stifling pancake of a reality understood what I was talking about when I said there was a direction called up. While they were all bumping around like ants in a terrarium, I could see a world of infinite glittering potential beyond the sliver of forgettable world that was my home reality. I looked up and saw the stars, and I was ready to be one. Technically, talking about a quote-unquote third dimension was illegal in my world, but I knew that everyone would be grateful if they could be freed from their delusions. So that's kind of like his early life. And then we get to the massacre, the genocide. We don't know how he did it, because a lot of it is like glitched out, but I'll read what we do have, and I'll get into why I think it's glitched out. I came up with a plan to show everyone what they were missing. I simply... Their screams getting louder and louder. So much blood, so much mandibles. My hands shaking as I realized I could never undo the... Was the last one breath. So it's a family matter. Till there's no one left but me, covered in blood, alone in the universe. Huh, that's weird. For some reason, whenever I try to talk about that day, there's always a loud buzzing in my ears and I black out for a good 30 seconds. Well, we can come back to it. The important thing is, I freed myself from my suffocating world, freed everyone else too, and everyone loved me for it. And everyone was fine! And there's all there is to say about that. The new dimension I escaped to had a job vacancy for the world of Galactic Overlord. And I humbly oblige. Okay, so if you're wondering why I just kind of suddenly cut between those, it's because, like I said, a lot of it is blacked out, and like even Bill can't remember it, and I do think that's some sort of trauma response, because like sometimes your brain, now I'm applying logic to a cartoon triangle, but like I think it's kind of important, and I think it's kind of cool that they're incorporating this. But when your brain goes through, like when you go through a very traumatic experience or experiences, your brain will try and protect you at all costs. And that can lead to, gaps in your memory, sometimes as small as 30 seconds, sometimes as big as decades. And like for Bill, he can't remember anything about that day, and I think that was a trauma response. I think when he was doing it, he knew it was wrong, and he didn't want to do it at the end of the day. And, but he still did it, and then as a way to protect himself, he kind of forced himself to forget what happened. And now, here's a couple of facts that, like, I also kind of feel like are important to mention. We figured out, like, the identities of his parents. Euclid being Bill's dad, spelled Euclid, and then Scalene, Scalene, and then is Bill's mom. And we finally figured out exactly what Bill was trying, like what was his home, like, dimension. And that was something called Euclidia. And then, you can look up how to spell that. And as you learned, he had a genetic mutation with his eye, which caused him to be able to see a third dimension. And I'm curious about how exactly he got that, like, mutation, because, like, mutations and everything is a part of genetics, and that's passed down. So, like, I wonder if at some point within his family's history and his dimension's history, he wasn't the only one that could see what was beyond. And, like, for some reason, that person or that shape decided, I don't want any part of it. I'm not going to mention this to anyone. Because, like, it doesn't make sense if Bill is the only one to only have this mutation. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyways. But, yeah, that just kind of shows the, like, him blacking out when trying to recall the experience. It is a traumatizing experience. Now, he was the one that did it, and it was a monstrous, decision that he made. But it was still a traumatic experience. And once again, when you're going through trauma, your brain will try and protect itself at all costs. And like, in this case, it manifested in him having a gap in his memory and not being able to recall it. And like, we get some glimpses of just like what little is been able to recall, such as their screams getting louder and louder as I, blank. I assume the ending of the sentence is as I slaughtered them all. And then so much blood, so much, and he's like starting to like panic and scream. And then like my hand shaking as I realized I could never undo the damage I caused. And like, that's really interesting. And then like we see this theme kind of continue on of his regrets, and like it's kind of sprinkled in and sewn throughout the book of how much he regrets and hates his decision for what he had done, and he wants to rebuild a family. And that can be evidently seen in the next page titled Meet the Crew, and in the photo with him, Teeth, Keylock, I'm sorry, my brain is all over the place. Pyrocronadia, 8-Ball, and, Hexacon over here. Like, it's the Friends, style of writing, and it says henchmen. But the tagline says, join the family. And that's, not the only thing that's weird about that. You get this theme all over about family and how important that is. Such as with this line, joining my club was easy. You just need to pass the initiation, get the brand, sever old ties to your prior life, and fight to the death with the big burger place ball pit for my loyalty. A family. And that's very interesting to me, because, before we didn't get really any depth with Bill Cipher, he was just cocky, and that was all that we knew. And the little that we did know about him just gave us more questions without really any answers. And then we get more detail about his trauma and his guilt with the pages A Voice from the Past. On the second page, there's a conversation between Bill and Sixer, or Ford, and I'm gonna read out the conversation I had with you. That he had with him. When my muse saw me break my stress ball, I decided it was finally time to vent about Stanley. How about that? You've got an inferior clone. Why don't you just eat him in the womb? Think about how powerful you could be. You can't just eat your twin, Bill. You'd be surprised what you can eat. I say, sure, call him if you want him to start mooching off you again. Me? I want no contact with my home dimension, and I don't regret it one bit. All they did was hold me back and sabotage my talents. Can you imagine? More than you know. But do you ever wonder if maybe things could have been different? Take it from a guy who's tried it. You can undo the past. You can't undo the past unless you want to thaw a giant baby out of a glacier. Come again? Figure of speech. It means waste your time. I guess you can never really go back home again, can you? I sure can't. My dimension was entirely burned out of existence. Want to see the only thing left of it? Cypher then removed his hat and plucked a singular speck of dust from within. The last item of a demolished reality. I was dumbfounded. What? Your entire home dimension? Destroyed? How? But by what? And then this is where it gets interesting. Bill looked distant. More distant than I'd ever seen him before. By a monster. That's unimaginable. Did you ever track this beast for revenge? I could help you. I could hunt it down. He laughed joylessly. Sixer, idiot, you're alive. Now, this entire, bottom half of the conversation is really interesting to me. And it's the way the information is conveyed. He didn't have to include Bill looked distant, more distant than I'd ever seen him, or the he laughed joylessly. Wow, that's hard to say. Because if he didn't, like, it'd be read completely different. It'd read like, I am monster. And then it would be like, Sixer, I'd eat you alive. Like, because that's how he's always come off as cocky, as arrogant. You know, he thinks he's better than everyone because for the most part, he is right. He can kind of do whatever he pleases. And what can, Ford do? Nothing. So, it's really interesting that we get this tiny bit of information of Bill looking distant and, being incredibly standoffish and laughing as if, the door has been sucked out.